marks the final road course stop. The FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. This is Detroit Belle Isle, the street circuit, as it's race number 33 on the season. The Motor City Mayhem 100 presented by Tristan Hagenstein Photography. I'm Seth Cole, being joined by Anthony McCurry. Anthony, obviously, we've seen during the course of these playoffs, those playoff drivers trying to make their way into the championship battle in a couple of weeks' time in the season finale. Right now, only 3 drivers in line to be able to do so, but what does this street course have to do in terms of how it's going to play its part into this championship battle?
This track is extremely tight, and these cars are extremely large. It's going to be difficult for some of these drivers to get the power down and not run into each other, as well as find real estate on the racetrack in order to get around this tight and narrow street circuit. Of course, Detroit Belle Isle is synonymous with open wheel racing, GT racing more recently, but also being that it's one of the more tougher street circuits in the entire world. It's going to be a huge championship implications if some of these drivers that are in the hunt for the championship cannot get around in one piece.
Be 43 laps, 100 miles in total. As mentioned, a street circuit, so there is the possibility if the track gets blocked up enough, we could see ourselves a full course yellow. We did see a couple of full course yellows early on in the Charlotte Roval race a few weeks ago. As Ocean Walsh, Tucker Minter going to be the front row, you're going to see these cars get turned loose with a standing start, engines revving up, and there are a couple of tricky spots for these drivers to have to traverse here in the early stage of this race, especially with them all bunched up here, Anthony. Let's see what happens.
Off the line, everyone gets well. Walsh gets a good start down to the inside. There goes Minter trying to get a run, but can't get it. But behind them, you got Oates, one of the championship protagonists, as well as Reynolds trying to battle side by side throughout the first straight as Tucker Minter now gets into the second place. Behind him, Reynolds and Oates were battling out for the 4th place position. Everyone else behind got through turn 1 A-OK. I actually thought they were going to have a bit of an issue getting through turn 1, but everyone was able to file out as we go single file pretty much through the whole field. Save for the back of the pack where you got Ryan O'Rocky now making a pass. There's someone in the wall, the 46 in the wall. That's Robert Dorman that's found himself stuck into the tire barrier, but he's got going back the right direction.
I was really surprised that all but one, Robert Dorman, were able to get through turn 3. I think that's going to be one of the toughest parts of the track here today. Super heavy braking zone, a very sharp right-hand turn, and I think even longer this run goes on and these tires start to heat up and the lack of grip starts to go away in the braking zone, I think you're going to see that corner in particular play more and more a part in this race.
Tucker Minter almost had an extreme off when he went wide, almost hit the tire barrier, but he's fine. He's got back going, and no harm, no foul for this 10 machine. Everyone single filing, except for some drivers that are losing some spots. I think there's been a problem at the back of the pack with Tyler Landon. He's slow, making his way through into Sector 3, trying to get around, as Ocean Walsh will be leading the race, but Blake Reynolds right behind him, so this battle for the lead is still hot as we complete lap 1, still first, second, third place with relative close proximity to each other, so first and second have gotten away, and second and third have kind of gotten into their own little world behind them, as Oates is now under fire from Minter.
There Justin Malello in the 53, Robert Dorman in the 46, second incident he's been involved in today. They had some problems over there. I think that was in turn 6. They have gotten their cars refired and driven away. For drivers that run into issues here early on, they do have a competition caution at lap 15 that will save them. From that point on, everybody's basically on their own, and any mistakes that they make, they're going to have to spend the rest of the race trying to kind of remedy that fact. Oh, got a car that's off the pace back there, Isaac Johnson in the 33. I think he pancaked the right side. Ryan Araki back there out of shape as he nearly loses it off of that turn. He keeps it pointed in the right direction, but one thing that I'm noticing here for these guys, heavy braking zone for the front tires, a lot of wheel spin for the rear tires on corner exit.
Another driver that had an incident through that Sector 1 location was Matthew Zwack. He ended up hitting the tire barrier around turn 4 and ended up having a ton of damage on the front and back end of his 18, but he's gotten it going and fired again. He's finding himself now battling with Nathan Rabideau. Now, the benefit for Zwack is that you don't really have to be concerned with the aerodynamics as much at this racetrack, it's when you start knocking the suspension out of line, that's when you start having the issues. And really the front straightaway complex is about the only place where, well, the back straightaway complex as well, it's about the only place that the aerodynamics is going to matter entirely too much. And the one who ran into him was Nate the Rapido, and now he has a significant amount of front end damage.
Robert Dorman went around again. It's interesting there, you talk about the contact between Matthew Zwack and Nathan Rabideau. That is the battle right now for the final driver to be able to point their way into the season finale. Rabideau right now holds the second position in the point standings, 1 point in hand over Matthew Zwack. With how they're running right now, those two would be in a dead tie for that second position in points.
So trying to settle that out while also trying to mitigate the damage that you could potentially get at this racetrack, as that same turn is proving to be a bit of a challenge for a lot of these drivers. That's actually down into, I believe, turn 6, or make that, yeah, it is turn 5 where they're having the issues at. And turn 5 is a very extremely difficult blind left-hand turn, but the difference between that one and a lot of the other turns in the circuit is that there is a huge curbing that's on to the left side, and you try to judge that a little bit slightly, and on the right side of the track it kind of closes in on the corner exit, and you think you can carry more speed through there, and you cannot, as Rabideau is another driver that pounded the outside wall on the way out.
Spencer Ray in the 19, running in the 9th position. Mentioned the fact that the last road course we were at, the Charlotte Roval, well, Spencer Ray remembers that very well. He was airborne, actually, off of turn number 3 between turns 3 and 4, bringing out the yellow in the early stages of that race. He was filling in the number 4 for Nate Stewart that week, but he's been able to now make it at least 3.5 laps here at Detroit Belle Isle. The aforementioned Nate Stewart with the breast cancer awareness pink on his Toyota Supra, right now holding down the 5th position behind Sean Butler. And a big thing that we keep talking about here with these playoffs is these drivers, they can kind of pick and choose what racetracks they want to be at to try and make their way into the playoffs. And for Nate Stewart, Sean Butler, drivers who have not made all of the playoff starts this season, if they are the highest points-paying Grand National Series driver here today, even if they finish in the 3rd, 4th position, as long as it's Cup drivers that are ahead of them, they get the air quotes victory, and they will be moving on into that championship battle in 2 weeks' time.
It's a pretty good system that they got going on here. It doesn't necessarily mean that you may not win the race, but you're able to still capitalize on the finish. And something that I think should be implemented in a lot of other leagues where they let the upper series drivers come in, because they work hard, and it's not that they're unskilled or anything like that. It's just that they have to compete against a bunch of drivers, but within their own championship, it's kind of race. We used to race your siblings or your friends on some of the older racing games, and you said, okay, we're only going to race each other, not the AI, and then whoever finishes in the first place position or second, third, fourth, wherever you're at, you actually get the win, or at least you did for bragging rights. That's how I look at it anyway.
Heading on board here with Ocean Walsh. I mean, look at everything that's happening inside the cockpit of this 37. The bumps that he's hitting, the car just jostling around, the hand motion there, trying to brake for the corners, trying to be able to get the power down with the rear tire spinning. I mean, these guys, they are going to be tired out at the end of this 43-lap race.
It's a tough circuit. It's an extremely bumpy circuit, extremely narrow, and these cars, how heavy they are, you have to kind of, it's like driving a boat almost, as I think that Reynolds had an issue behind him. He's lost a lot of time, and now Tucker Minter's caught up to him, but driving these cars around are like driving boats. It's extremely difficult to have change of direction, and they have so much power but not a whole lot of downforce, so getting the power down over the bumps is definitely a stressful situation, and judging braking zones in these cars are extremely difficult as well. For instance, going into turn 3, you're pretty much on the brakes at the, I believe this track has got a 400 meter board. You're basically on the brakes as soon as you possibly can without trying to scrub off too much corner entry speed, because you want to carry the momentum. You just don't want to run straight off the racing circuit.
It's the battle for 4th place going on between Jonathan Oates and Nate Stewart, a driver that we haven't really mentioned who started towards the rear of the field because he actually started from pit lane, is Andrew Schwartz, and he's done a pretty good job here. Since the drop of the green, coming off pit lane, has passed a couple of cars from 22nd now up to the 18th position here, and so I've got some more cars just ahead of him. Gary Waterworth, Brian Rocky. We could very easily see the 67 up inside the top 15 before we reach that lap 15 competition caution.
Yeah, he's got a lot of work to do. He's got plenty of laps to do it, though. Plenty of time in order to do it. That's another thing at this track is it's not very easy to make passes. You really only have a couple of places where you can realistically do it, and at the end of turn, well, going into turn 3 is a huge braking opportunity where you can get some work done, and then another braking place would be into turn 7, another place you can easily make a position. If you're daring enough, you make it into 5, but you could definitely see Schwartz making his way up before the Cop Yellow. I would pin him probably within the top 15 if he can get some passes made. He might set one up down into turn 3 right now, but yeah, he does. He's going to pull to the right-hand side of Waterworth. Down to the inside. Can he get the power, or can he get the braking zone right? He does. Slides through, hits the curbing, but over again comes into 17th for the 67. Now he sets his sights on championship hopeful Ryan Naraki.
Saw the front tires slide, locked up that right front especially. The tire smoke coming off of the 67 as he'll look to get around his teammate there. That will complete the pass. Ryan Naraki realizing that the 67 faster than him, has been making better laps and doing the courteous thing, getting out of the way. Brett Pancari just picked up a couple of spots there, getting around Matt Taylor, who I think ran into an issue. He also just bypassed Spencer Ray, and Brett Pancari, he can go out there and he can race aggressive here for these next couple of races here at Belle Isle, next week at Martinsville, because his third place performance last week at Kansas netted him an automatic golden ticket into that season finale with the chance of battling for the championship.
And once we get to that race, he'll try to maintain his status as being ready for the championship. And the championship is actually coming up in 3 weeks' time. We have an off week between Martinsville and our final race. So those drivers will have a chance to get their minds centered onto the championship race. And Kari is going to be one of those drivers that wants to maximize his performance here so he can have a better chance of having the championship battle go to him. A driver that I thought that would be doing a lot worse than he is right now, given the amount of damage he has, is, again, Matthew Zwack. He's got quite a bit of damage, but actually keeping pace with... They actually caught up to Sean Butler. Butler has not been going in the right direction. He's been going backwards ever since about lap 4, and I don't think he is feeling too entirely comfortable with the way that his 32 is handling right now.
Looking here real quick to see about Jonathan Oates' situation on whether he would be qualified for a victory or not with where he's currently running, and I think would be Tucker Minter does not run for Grand National Series points. I know that Blake Reynolds does not run for Grand National Series points. I'm double checking here on our race leader Oakson Walsh, and it looks like he does run for points, so he would be the highest Grand National Series points paying driver. If Jonathan Oates wants to solidify himself a spot into that championship hunt when we get to the season finale, he would have to get up here ahead of the 37. But Jonathan Oates right now, it's looking like he's got himself in a pretty comfortable position points-wise. I mentioned about the battle between Nathan Rabideau and Matthew Zwack for that final position to point their way in. Jonathan Oates finds himself 5 points ahead of that battle, and he's running ahead of both of those drivers on the track right now.
And running about actually running 3 positions ahead of the aforementioned Matthew Zwack. Oates running 4th, Zwack running in 5th place. Zwack again with a heavy amount of damage on his 18 as Orson Walsh continues to lead the way. He's actually opened up quite a huge gap between himself and Blake Reynolds. Reynolds 3 seconds back and in the clutches of Tucker Minter, who is about 7/10 of a second behind him, I should say. Jonathan Oates again in 4th, and Nate Stewart has lost some ground to Jonathan Oates. Will now be about 5.5 seconds back to the 73. Though the top 5 spreading out quite a bit. Everyone trying to get into their own run, trying to find where their car is better than the other drivers are at. It's typical Belle Isle racing. Just it's man versus machine versus the racetrack versus everybody else. And I think we're in that stage of the race where the everybody else part is starting to come a little bit looser.
I think the strategy is just don't hit anything, because it will slow you down and somebody will be there with momentum to be able to pass you. If you can at least avoid hitting anything, you got a good chance of keeping that car in your rearview mirror. Blake Reynolds, many victories this season at road courses, including Spa. He went to victory lane at the Road Atlanta course. He also went to victory lane at COTA, the Daytona road course. So he has found victory lane, found success at a lot of the road course configurations. The Indianapolis road course also on his checklist as Tyler Landon, I saw just ahead of these guys, has gone around. That's turn 3. That's the area I was talking about. You see the 3 sets of tire barriers there in case you overshoot the corner. I think he overshot it and caught the tire barriers just on the exit of that corner.
It's very easy to do that in that stage of the track. It's easy to run off a lot of these places and at this track, especially in some of the key areas. I would say are the places you can also have that happen, or turn 8 is a place that you could have that. Really, realistically, any turn on this racetrack is a danger corner. Just overshot it ever so slightly. Actually hopped the tires a little bit and overshot. Just overshot.
Austin Walsh leading this race. He's got some good numbers at road courses as well, including his best finish of the season, which was a second place a couple of weeks ago with the Charlotte Roval. He has a 3rd at the Daytona road course, a 4th at Spa, so obviously very good at the lefts and rights as well. He was the fastest in practice, obviously the fastest in qualifying, starting from the pole position, and he's been able to keep a nice sizable gap between himself and Blake Reynolds, who still is in a pretty good fight with Tucker Minter for 2nd place. So if you're Austin Walsh, how difficult is it to keep yourself mentally focused now of just hitting your marks, because you've kind of left 2nd, 3rd place in the dust. The only person that can take away at least this race lead from you at this point in time, not counting that competition caution coming 5 laps time, would be yourself.
I think it's what the mode he's in right now is hot lap mode, but not as aggressive. It would be like if you were running on the solo session and you're just running laps trying to practice. He's in that mode right now where you don't want to really focus on the guys behind you. You've got clean racetrack in front. You're good by over 3 seconds, so there's no immediate danger. Just kind of put down some laps, be consistent, hit your marks, and you can get into rhythms at tracks like this. Ironically, the bumps help you with some of the getting into the rhythm, especially at the street circuits, because you can remember, okay, this turn's got a bump here, I need to slow down for that, and then that's where I can turn in. It's exactly this amount of time after I hit that bump, or if I can hit that curb, I can get away with it and I can arc the car in, or if I brake at this part of the track where the wall jets out, then I can get around the turn. If I turn in here, ride it against it, and then try to pin it to the inside of the racetrack, that double apex is amazing, and then come out of the turn 13 down to 14. That's kind of what you do. You just go through your head, okay, here's the section, do the thing. Here's another section, do the thing. And then eventually you just do it so many times it becomes muscle memory.
Watching here, a battle, playoff contenders, throw a blanket over him. Sean Butler, Matthew Zwack, Nathan Rabideau, 6th back through 8th. Of course, Zwack and Rabideau right now battling potentially for the final spot to battle for the championship in 3 weeks' time. One thing that I was thinking about, a lot of the contact we're seeing these drivers make is going to be either with tire barriers or the concrete wall, and that is a slam for Sean Butler into the concrete barrier. And one thing that I believe it was Parker White last week after Kansas said is these Xfinity cars, they're like paper thin. When you hit the wall, it just rips the race car apart. Now, you mentioned the fact that it doesn't really hurt the cars in terms of speed, but it certainly could hurt these cars in terms of handling.
Absolutely. Cosmetic damage and aerodynamic damage won't really affect you too much at this track. There's not much of it on these cars to begin with. However, if you knock something loose, especially the suspension, the steering angle, anything that could affect your handling, you're going to struggle at this track, especially with the amount of bumps, especially with how thin the track is. If you hit a curb and your steering is arced a certain direction and you're trying to hold the wheel to make it counter steer, then if the curb happens, you have the risk of damaging something else, as I think that Matthew Zwack, the damage on his car is finally catching up to him.
He just got the wall with the right front of his machine. Nathan Rabideau almost hit the wall there off that corner. Everybody's struggling at this point in time. Is this just because everyone's trying to be aware of each other's braking zones, or are the tires and that tire heat starting to come into play here with 11 circuits on them?
There's definitely some tire wear issues accompanied with trying to find your proximity with the other drivers and hitting your marks. Although the damage that these drivers have sustained, if you just take a look at Matthew Zwack's machine, it does not look very happy right now. It's a very poorly looking race car, and that damage over time will accumulate, and you find yourself running a very different machine. And then you add the tire the tire degradation into everything, and then it just makes it even worse. So you try to keep the power down, you can't quite get it down, and then you try to brake. And I think that was just a lockup on Zwack's part. I think he just over braked a bit too much and then just slid it on into the turn. But mental mistakes that you have to, you can't afford to make a mistake at Belle Isle. There's no track runoff anywhere except for a couple of turns, and even then it's really unforgiving because you got tire barriers on the other side. So unlike say a Coda or an Indianapolis or a Daytona, you don't have the safety nets that you normally would. So having to remember that and not being able to exceed track limits too much. Sometimes you'd able to exceed the track limits just a bit if you wanted to get the power down and keep the car from over rotating, and then you would just let it slide off the track. I think Butler and Zwack had the same problem coming out of turn 7 right there. But you'll have that problem happen where they'll think that, okay, I can drive the car a bit harder than I normally think I could get away with, and then well, you can't really do that. There's a wall there, and it's harder than your car is, and we've seen that happen a bunch this race, just this race alone.
Talked about the 18 of Matthew Zwack not looking happy, and I don't know if that section of the course, if he's got the toe knocked out that's got it kind of forcing a bit to the right, or if that was just a long stint of wheel spin. But definitely looks like that car is skewed a little bit with that suspension, and that's certainly going to be something that he's going to have to deal with the rest of the race. Again, we talk about it, this league does not run faster pairs. Whatever damage you sustain at the start of this race, you've got to deal with the entirety of this race. And yeah, I think Zwack's got bigger problems than we might originally think here. Is just getting around it was Brent Pancari, now falls under fire from Spencer Ray. And this is a guy who cannot afford a bad performance here today, especially with the fact that he headed into Kansas last week inside the top 2 in points, in a playoff position, and after the Kansas checker flag wave, found himself 1 point outside of that cut line.
Driver on pit road, Jake Poulin finds himself down onto the pit lane. He's got a driver down there with him. I think that is
Justin Malello, I believe, in the...
It would be Malello. There's another driver. Here comes Nawrocki down pit road.
It's a strategy call by these guys. Coming down pit lane, more than likely won't lose a lap, take on their service before that competition caution comes out. And then when everybody else comes down pit lane under the yellow, they leapfrog them. And the next thing they know, they're the ones leading us back to green on the upcoming restart.
I think Justin Malello's reason for being on pit lane might have been a little more severe. He's gone down a lap. I think there was a lot of damage that he had to get repaired on the 53, but he's down in the way. 1 lap down, albeit he's in a free pass spot, so it's not super critical at the moment, but definitely doesn't want to be in this position. But still running around the racetrack. We're coming around 1 more lap, and then we'll get our comp yellow. It's still Walsh leading. Reynolds and Minter have not let each other get away from each other, as they're still battling a very close second place. And Walsh is now going to have to deal with something that he hasn't had to deal with yet, and that is slower traffic. I wonder, it's not going to be too difficult, I don't think, as he makes a quick deposit of, I believe that was Tyler Lanning that he just passed. So, and next on his list would be Malello. So I don't think it'll be that difficult for the race leader to get around these drivers, especially with the blue flags waving.
Malello has the fresher tires right now after just being on pit road. He's trying to stay the only car now 1 lap down, as Landon in the 04 just went -2 with Austin Walsh getting around him, and looks like Malello, even with those fresh tires, might not be able to hold off the speed of the 37 car, even with those older Goodyears. He's going to try and cut really deep there to the inside. You saw him hop the curbing there. It's going to be a real tight corner here to the left-hander, and Malello, he's going to go around as a result.
And he has parked it and has gone back to pit lane. What he's trying to do there was not go 2 laps down and be able to be in the free pass spot, but that has ironically taken him out of contention completely, as he's now towed it onto the pit lane. And he just hit the curb and got the power down too much, and just looped it straight around.
It's ironic, but it's actually a benefit too, in the fact that we actually had a previous broadcast this past Tuesday of Stadium Super Trucks here at the Detroit Belle Isle Street Course. And I remember talking to guys, and they said, man, even with these trucks that have even a little bit more stability going around these corners, it's very difficult to race side by side through these tight turns. And you saw right there, to Malello trying to do the best he can to give room to Ocean Walsh. The two didn't make contact, pays the price for it. That's what just makes these battles for position all the more important when one driver eventually gets alongside the other driver, because then it's down to a little bit of a game of chicken. Who's going to be the one that does the giving? Who's the one that's going to be the one doing the taking of the spot?
And especially if you're pinned down to the inside, it's even harder to get power down without looping it around, and you don't have the arc out of the turn. And Walsh was, I guess Walsh was thinking that he wasn't caught up in it. He could have very easily come back up onto the racetrack, did Malello, but did not do that in the slightest, as we haven't gotten our comp yellow yet. We're on the lap where we would. I think we're just waiting for most of the drivers to cross the line, most of the lead lap drivers to cross the line anyway. As
it'd be coming to the completion of lap 15 here as well. Whenever the race leader hits the line, it will complete the 15th lap, and that might be when the yellow flag flies.
So in a few moments time, as we're going through 12 and 13 now, is the only drivers that have yet to complete lap 15 are...
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, they were waiting for Poulin and Narwaki. They have crossed the line, and now we have gotten our comp yellow, first yellow flag of the evening, and not due to any incident on the racetrack, simply a competition full course.
And more than likely, with the minor incidents that we saw in different areas of the racetrack, the only caution that we will see here tonight, which is going to make things very interesting for these drivers, in the fact that they will probably, when we end up going back green flag racing, have what, maybe 25 laps left to go. They only ran 15 laps here on this set of tires, so now this calls into question, what's the fuel numbers for these guys? Would they be able to make it to the conclusion of this race after coming down, taking on 4 tires and 2 cans under this comp caution? Is fuel strategy going to come into play? This is going to be pretty interesting here. We've seen in the past how these very technical road courses, just when you think you've got it figured out of who the car to win the race is going to be, maybe even the top 5, all of a sudden strategy at the end completely changed the landscape of the race.
We were a part of a race earlier today that had similar strategies in it, so very likely that we might see that happen as well. I know that we've already seen a couple of drivers that have made their strategy very well known, and that would be Jake Poulin and Ryan Naraki, as they came down early before the comp yellows even started, and they got fresh tires and fuel. So we know what they have in their pocket, but we don't know what all of these other 20 or so drivers have yet to do. Just Malello still on pit road, and Robert Dorman never took the start of the race, in case you were wondering. That's why he is shown in the 22nd position, I believe, on the ticker right now. As they come through,
he took the start, but he had, I think it was 2 or 3 spins, and so he's on pit road getting a lot of damage repaired.
You're right. Yeah, he's got 6 laps already on his tally, so we'll be
he
getting
got hit with the Tsukuba curse.
Ooh. Oh yeah, the Tsukuba National curse. Yeah, and it follows all the way to Detroit, which I guess is scarier because it made its way to Detroit. As
Pits will be open. I think we're going to see everybody down pit road, with the exception, as you mentioned, Jake Poulin and Ryan Araki. This is typical Jake Poulin as well, that we've seen at the speedways, at the short tracks, at the 2-mile tracks. He'll stay out. He'll lead that extra lap. Then he comes to pit road. At the road courses, he's one of the first to pit lane if there is going to be a competition caution coming out. I remember him doing this last season when we were at Spa. He was one of the first down pit road before the comp caution came out. So this is a typical Jake Poulin strategy, and seen it work out for him too in terms of being able to maintain track position. We'll see what happens here, as here comes Oates, Walsh and company down to the attention of their crews for, we'll put this in question marks, possibly the only pit stop of the day.
And it's going to be pretty much identical stops for our top 2 on the pit lane anyways. Walsh and Minter try to get their cars serviced, as looks like it'll be 4 tires, fuel. Whoa, look at the run! Almost hit the pit wall, did Blake Reynolds on the way out, but that was a close battle. He almost tried to jump him, but that was the benefit of having the first stall. It was basically just a straight shot to the line. He was able to cut off the advance of Reynolds, so pretty much the way they came down the pit lane is the way that they'll exit the pit lane, with Walsh, Reynolds, and Minter still your top 3, and then Oates and Stewart now will be in 5th place.
And I just noticed that Poulin and Rocky came back down pit road. So I'm not certain what the strategy call was there for those guys. They came down pit lane. They're going to be restarting back outside of the top 15 as a result. It looks like Poulin took on another set of tires. Looks like Ryan Araki did the same. So I don't know. Did they think that the 2 laps that they put on those tires was going to put them in too much of a detriment to the fresher tires behind them? Did they feel they weren't going to be able to get up there behind the pace car before Ocean Walsh, Blake Reynolds and company came off pit lane and crossed that commitment line? I'd love to be a fly on the wall of those pit boxes and know what went into the mentality of them coming back down pit road, because those were 2 drivers you and I both pegged that we would probably see up here at the front leading us back for this restart.
I have a theory. It might have been fuel mileage. It might have been a couple of laps too short, because they did come down about 3 laps before the actual yellow came out. So I don't think that they were quite prepared for how much the fuel drop off was going to be, and that puts into question, will these other drivers be able to make it on one stop? Because that's the only way I can see that they would have wanted to come down, is to top off with fuel, not necessarily get the new fresh tires. But if you're going to top off with fuel, you might as well get the fresh tires to be within competition with everyone else. But that is unfortunate if they couldn't make it on fuel, because that would have been a pretty interesting strategy to see them play out as the race progressed. But the safety car will be coming in this time by really short caution periods at this circuit, as full course yellow is coming to an end.
It certainly doesn't take them very long to get bunched back up here. Takes them maybe half a lap off of pit road, catch back up to the pace cars. So no need to go an extra lap of pacing here. Give them all the laps possible for green flag racing, as the iRacing pace car going to head for pit road. Ocean Walsh and Blake Reynolds going to lead us back to green. 37 up through the gears, going to have the advantage across the start-finish line, leaving Reynolds and Minter to battle for second place. Reynolds drives it in deep, almost gets the right record pile, and we have a caution.
That is for, I don't think all the drivers had caught up yet. I think this is a admin thrown yellow.
I think you are correct.
There's a number of drivers, such as Sean Butler, we have Matt Taylor, Cabrera, and Tyler Landon. They hadn't made it to the back of the field, so this is probably to regroup them all.
An admin thrown caution here. Yeah, that's the one problem about this racetrack. Obviously, it takes them a bit of time to get around this track, anywhere from a minute and a half to a minute and 40 seconds. So drivers that may have spent a little bit of extra time on pit road getting some damage repaired from the battle scars the first 15 laps, not able to get up there in time when we got put back under the green flag. It looks like Ocean Walsh, Blake Reynolds are trying to find the iRacing pace car here. So,
whoa,
Walsh.
Oh, do we have 2 drivers? We have a Walsh and Minter that straight up drove into turn 7, didn't even stop.
They forget what corner they were in?
Well, they always say that you can do it while you're racing, but if you're trying to do it under pacing, it could be a bit confusing.
To see here, I would assume Ocean Walsh would get his spot back, but would that be considered not maintaining pace speed, and would that give the race lead over to Reynolds for this upcoming restart? That's another thing we might have to think about. Tucker Minter is still back there in 7th place. I don't know if they're going to so here's the situation. I think it was raced back to the start-finish line. Because Ocean Walsh, Tucker Minter ended up having that incident in that same corner, they lost the spots before coming back around to the stripe. So I think it is going to be Blake Reynolds, the race leader, when they catch up to the pace car here. Walsh second, Oates, Stewart, Rabideau going to be the top 5, and Minter will be all the way back in 7th place behind Pancari.
This is a very interesting yellow period, as Walsh, I think, might have disconnected. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, this has added some drama. If Walsh is disconnected, he's fallen back.
It'd be a connection problem for him here. Is grayed out on our telemetry. We'll see if he reappears or not. Oh boy.
There has been a shakeup in the top 10 if that is the case, and that will definitely hand the lead over to Blake Reynolds if he doesn't get back in. That's unfortunate, though. You never want to go out because of a connection error. It's nothing that you can do, and it's not a forced driving error or an incident on the racetrack, and that's the toughest way to go out.
Especially when it's something that's completely out of your control. Reynolds is still trying to find the iRacing pace car here as we are under yellow flag. An admin thrown caution to get everybody bunched up. With the fact that Blake Reynolds is having to speed up to find the pace car here, I'm not necessarily certain that they'll be able to get them all lined up in time for this upcoming restart as well. Maybe they can add another lap onto pacing or something to be able to remedy the issue that we had there under the comp caution, but Ocean Walsh, he is not turned to the server at this point in time. That is such a tough break for a guy that was looking like one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to be able to pick up this victory. And Ocean Walsh mentioned he's been close so many times at the road courses. He's still searching for his first victory of the FTF Grand National Series, and looks like right now it's not going to be the case for him.
If he can get in before the safety car pulls off, they might be able to add his laps back and put him back up into at least the second place position, or even at the tail end of the longest line, but on the lead lap. So we'll have to see if he can indeed get back in before. We won't be going to green this time by, so there's still at least 3.5 to 4 minutes before we will have that green flag period open out. But this has got to be one of the more bizarre full course yellows that I've ever seen, given the fact that it was thrown about due to a lack of field at the back of the pack. There were some cars that were stragglers and they couldn't get back up. We basically turned 2 full laps before we ended up getting back to the safety car, including a couple of drivers, both of them running off the track at the exact same part. You had Oates and Walsh, and you had Tucker Minter driving off at turn 7. In fact, we're coming up to it right now, and I still cannot for the life of me understand how they managed to do that.
I can't either. It certainly cost both of them. And Walsh, obviously, after that, dealing with the connection problems. I wondered about the fact with this caution coming out, if some drivers might elect to come down pit lane and top off the fuel tank. Looks like we had 3 takers in total. Jake Poulin, and Naraki, and Sean Butler all came down pit lane. So if this does turn into a fuel mileage race, then those drivers might be a little bit better off than others. The other thing I'm wondering, though, if it does turn into a fuel mileage race, is you've got this extra lap and a half, almost 2 laps under pacing to be able to save some fuel. So it might have taken the fuel strategy race completely out, as Tyler Lannon with this yellow flag is going to get the free pass. He'll get back on the lead lap. I believe that prior to this caution coming out, that it was, I believe Malello was the lucky dog under the previous caution. I'll double check on that. We're going to have 19 drivers on the lead lap of 20 that are running right now. Malello currently 3 laps down. He will pass Ocean Walsh in the next 2 laps or so for that 20th spot. Walsh still not in the server, will drop to 21st, and Robert Dorman still sitting on pit road in the 22nd position.
We'll get them lined up this time around, and this time we will have all of our drivers lined up for the green flag, as Blake Reynolds now inherits the lead of the race after Ocean Walsh first ran off the racetrack in turn 7 and then disconnected from the server, so a double whammy for the 37. We hope that he can get back in and at least finish the race, but we'll have to keep our eye on the progress of that. And now Jonathan Oates will be in second place, and we were talking about how Jonathan Oates needed to have a stellar run today in order to solidify his championship hopes. So he's running second place, and I wouldn't be surprised if he challenges for the lead of the race at the restart. So have to watch for a dive into either turn 1 or potentially down into turn 3 for the 73. Nate Stewart, Nathan Rabideau, Brett Quincari will be rounding out in the top 5, and then we have Tucker Minter, who also ran off the racetrack at turn 7, will now be restarting in the 6th position. Andrew Schwartz has made his way up into 7th place. We were wondering when it would be when we'd see the 67 running up here in the mix, and now I think we know the answer to that, as he's made his way up here. We got Isaac Johnson, Matthew Zwack with a still very heavily damaged 18 machine. Gary Waterworth, Spencer Ray, Lucas Palesso, Matt Taylor, Rich Jameson, Ryan Araki, Jake Poulin, who has made the most pit stops today, will be restarting in the 17th position. David Cabrera catching up to the back of the field, and Tyler Lannon also trying to catch his way up to the back of the field. Tyler Lannon now back onto the lead lap with no hood on the race car, just trying to maintain this position as he's locked up and has slid off into turn 3. I don't know if he'll be able to get back in enough time to get to the back of the field for this restart. He might have to restart somewhere halfway on the racetrack.
I think it's more than likely going to get to the point here for the FTF admins that if a driver does get the lucky dog and has to go around to get its lap, they're going to just have to go without them. I don't think that there's enough time under pacing for a driver to be able to make their way around this street course and catch up to the tail end of the field before they end up going green. We'll see if they allow this thing to continue to run, as Lannon right now more than 30 seconds behind the race leader, more than 30 seconds as well behind the last car, David Cabrera, in this formation. Definitely not going to get up there with this group when they get turned loose. As the pace car hits pit road, Blake Reynolds, Jonathan Oates going to be the front row. Supra versus Ford, green flag back in the air. 22 laps to go at the stripe.
And so far, everyone trying to get around. It's double file for second place. Oh, almost Nate Stewart hit the outside wall just ever so slightly. Now a drag race between himself and Jonathan Oates down into turn 3. Who's got the momentum to carry it in? I think we've had a crash behind him. I think Ryan Araki might be spun around at the back of the pack. As into turn 3, it's going to be Nate Stewart taking the position. Here comes Tucker Minter on the outside to try and get around Jonathan Oates. Oates had a horrible restart. He's lost 2 positions. Meanwhile, Ryan Araki finds himself in a spot of bother as he's lost a ton of positions now back into 18th.
And Araki spun by himself. Ooh, a lot of smoke there going through the left-hand corner. Andrew Schwartz trying to make a pass on Andrew Zwack, or make the Matthew Zwack rather. That is for 7th place, and he will complete the move and move another step closer towards the top 5. Up ahead of them, it's nose to tail for 2nd, 3rd, 4th position. Nate Stewart, Tucker Minter, Jonathan Oates right there in that mix, and actually just about a half car length ahead is Blake Reynolds. So throw a blanket over the top 4, maybe 5 if you throw Nathan Rabideau into that mix.
Reynolds now under fire from Nate Stewart. Went back and saw what happened to Ryan Araki. Actually made some contact with Rich Jameson on the exit of turn 2, and he got spun him around, and he has now gone back going. Rich Jameson now has, I think, let a lot of drivers gone by as a penalty server. There might be something wrong with the 86, but he has also lost a ton of positions on that exchange. As now Blake Reynolds leading the race as he completes lap 22 on 23. Nate Stewart trying to catch back up. Minter, Oates, that's your top 4. Nathan Rabideau is being hunted down right now by Bunkari and Schwartz and Zwack. You can throw him into the mixes. His car is still very ill handling, but staying up with this lead group.
Bunkari now shows that he wants to make a pass to driver's right. He showed the nose, but Nathan Rabideau able to hold him off, and Andrew Schwartz says thank you very much. You gave us some space to your left, and he's going to make a pass there for position. Ooh! Rabideau out of shape into Bunkari. Schwartz nearly knocked down the wall there with the left side of his machine. A lot of jostling for position going on right there in the latter half of the top 10.
Now, Rabideau got a piece of the grass on the way into the turn and ended up actually starting to slide before he even got into the braking zone, and the back end stepped out on him, had to catch back up. Now has gotten his car resettled and will continue to hunt down onto Matthew Zwack, but he's now under fire from Britt Bunkari, who had to get held up by the sideways Nathan Rabideau, and Spencer Ray now tries to battle up with Britt Bunkari. He's bringing Isaac Johnson with him. Single file, nose to tail, pretty much all the way through the field. Blake Reynolds is actually in front of a battle. Tucker Minter sends it into turn 4, make that turn 12, and actually gets it to hold down through 13, down onto the front straightaway. I think that he was on the edge of locking up, but now he's taking a 2nd place spot. Now tries to run down the leader as Nate Stewart now falls into 3rd.
That's not what Blake Reynolds wanted to see, because as of this point in time of the drivers that are still running, Reynolds has the fastest lap of the race with a 134.907. Just a touch off of that is Tucker Minter's 135.036. So he's definitely got the pace to hang with the 62, and he wants to see if he can pick up a victory here near the end of this Grand National Series season.
Only 2 races left after this one. We have Martinsville and then our final race at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So big championship implications, and this is the last opportunity you'll get to have your a championship run, or not just a championship run, but to try and get your name into the win column for this season, as we take next week and then a week off, and then our final race on November 13th at Atlanta. So drivers want to make a statement. Right now, Tucker Minter wants to make a statement against Blake Reynolds. He's all over the back end of that 62. And Blake Reynolds this season, we always see to have him up in the top 5, up in the top 10. I don't think that the 62 has ever, had a run that wasn't the fault of his own, or wasn't the fault of somebody else, have this car outside of the top 10 in most of the races. But he has put a solid run on this season. You almost want to have that momentum carry over into next season with how few races we have left. I don't think that he's... Right now, I don't think that he is a championship contender in this one, or if he is, that he's from the upper series, so definitely wants to have the momentum heading into not only this, but the Cup Series, and then have the momentum into next season.
Blake Reynolds, a 6-time winner here in the Grand National Series, but splits time in that 62 car with drivers like Mercurio. We've seen Kyle Riley take a turn in the super speedways. Even NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Ryan Vargas took a turn in the 62 Toyota. We're on board here watching the bumps here at Belle Isle on third place driver Nate Stewart. But the stuff that's out his windshield is not what he needs to worry about. He needs to focus out the back rear view mirror, because the gap he manages to have between himself and Jonathan Oates could be the difference between him battling for a championship at Atlanta or not. Right now, he is the highest Grand National Series driver as a playoff contender if he can hold this third position behind drivers Blake Reynolds and Tucker Minter, who are not battling for Grand National Series points. He would get the air quotes victory and be locked into the playoff scenario for the championship in 3 weeks' time.
If he can get that done, then that will put himself in a position to snipe this championship away. And he's put together some great races so far this season. Speaking of battle for the lead, look at Minter sending it in. Almost made contact with Reynolds, and now he's going to set him up down into turn 12. Can he make the run happen? I don't think so. He's going to set himself up for a run down onto the front straightaway. He's got now Nate Stewart. Nate Stewart might try to think of something going down into 14. Can he set up a run into turn 1, or will he have to settle for a run into turn 3?
Stewart is there if these two make a mistake, and not too far back behind these guys is Jonathan Oates, about a second and a half behind. So if all three get together, Jonathan Oates might be the one to drive on by and go from 4th to the race lead. Oates trying to make sure he points his way into the playoffs, but I'm sure he would love, with the wild card race of Martinsville coming up next week, he'd love to make absolutely certain, have that security that he's going to be in the championship picture at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And of course, as well, you mentioned the fact that there's going to be a week between next week's race at Martinsville and the season finale at Atlanta. Of course, all these drivers will be intently watching to see who wins the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship that night. But I don't know, if you're a driver after Martinsville that knows you're battling for a championship, would you rather have the season finale that following week rather than have one extra week to be able to think about it all?
I don't know. It's an interesting scenario. Some drivers might want to have that extra week of cool down to kind of get their mind set for the finale, but some of these drivers might want to go straight into it. I've talked to some drivers that they wish that, the penultimate race and the finale race could happen in the same night so it could be over and done with and they could stop stressing out about it. But some drivers, they want to have that calm before the storm. They want to gather their thoughts and get ready for the championship race and try to strategize and see what would work for that race. So it really depends on the personality type of the driver, more or less, especially if there's someone that is battling for a championship spot.
And this, having Nate Stewart up here in the 3rd position, makes this battle back here up for the 6th position all the more important. Oh, we got a wreck. David Cabrera has gone around. Not certain what section of the course that is, but he's facing towards the wall, so has to wait until traffic clears him before he can get the thing refired. He does drive away, but Cabrera was running around the 13th position. And just like that, he's going to drop all the way down to 17th. Sean Butler is actually coming down pit lane in the 32 car.
Oh, and I think there's a correlation between what happened between both him and Cabrera, because there was some contact between the two of them, and Cabrera got up onto the curbing out of turn 11 and looped the car around, and it's actually a pretty mild-mannered spin, all things considered. But Sean Butler did get a little bit of damage. He actually retired the race car.
There's always a clear indication when a driver is planning on taking their car back to the garage area, and that's when they come down pit road at over 100 miles per hour. So Sean Butler, obviously very frustrated with what just took place, running out of chances of winning his way into the championship picture at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and have to chalk up another one here tonight of not being able to take advantage of the opportunity to advance into that championship picture. Going to have one last shot next week at the Paperclip Short Track of Martinsville.
This battle for the lead has not gone away at all. It's actually only heated up, and Tucker Minter's trying to find a spot that he can make the pass, but it's incredibly difficult at this track. Sets up a run into turn 3, sets up a run into turn 7, he sets up a run into turn 5. I've seen him. He's going to have a pretty good run coming out of turn 2. We're going to see if he can capitalize on this one. Battle for the lead, a drag race down onto turn 3. Bit far back. He might try an ambitious move, but don't think he's got enough. Actually, I take that back. He's going to try it. He almost wanted to send it up the inside, but thought better of it, backed out, and that's kind of what you have to do if you want to make a pass here, especially if you lose any ground. Gets a little bit, clips the grass on the way into 4, now into 5. Not close enough to make the move, but you got to admit, if he's close, he's going to try it. He has a send it attitude. He's going to try it again. You can tell he's trying to set it up. He wants to send it, but he also wants to make the corner.
I got to ask you, that move we saw there in turn 3, is that more a mental game than anything? You show the nose to driver's right, the inside line, and that right-hander basically saying, I'm thinking about making a move here, and maybe take the focus for the 62 of Blake Reynolds off of his braking zone, maybe have him mess up that corner. We know that there's a tire barrier there, so if you make a mistake, it's going to be catastrophic. Is that to kind of draw the focus away? Cause the driver you're trying to pass to make a mental mistake? Because it just seems like, especially as I mentioned, the Stadium Super Truck race that we saw here earlier on this week, it seemed like the only way you'd make a pass on somebody is if they made a mistake and held the door open for you. If you tried forcing your nose in, you ran just as good a chance of wrecking them and wrecking yourself.
It definitely is a mental game, trying to make the guy in front of you make a mistake. Although, that being said, if you have a run into a turn and you think that you can't make it, but you try to send it in anyway, there's a good chance that you might find yourself alongside of the guy that you're trying to pass, and if you can put the power down, you might be able to be on through for the overtake. So while it is equal parts of mental game, it also is I'm going to try it and see if it sticks. Right now, back on the back bumper is Minter to Reynolds. I think that he might try to send it in. Trying to set up into 5, too far back again. But yeah, to your point, definitely wants to get into the head of Reynolds right now. Try to make him have an error. We've seen it happen already in tonight's race. Oh, actually, it was Minter that had the error. He gets a piece of the curbing out through turn 6, and that's going to take a lot of the momentum away. He's actually going to lose almost to a full second now behind Reynolds.
See if he's going to be able to reel Reynolds back in, get back to his bumper. Obviously got to get himself mentally focused back to hitting his marks, and looks like he is quickly closing up the gap. He's really good, it seems, in getting back to the throttle on some of these sharp corners. I think that's where he's gained a lot of his time. We've obviously seen, as we've been on board with him and looking from the back of Blake Reynolds as well, he's one of those guys not afraid to attack the entry to the corner. That's where he's been able to make up as much speed as he has and be able to keep Blake Reynolds honest here for this race lead.
And what I've noticed is Blake Reynolds, he gets a lot of speed coming out of turn 13 and carries the momentum down onto the front straightaway. That's something that Tucker Minter has not been able to match through the last 5 laps or so, is that any progress that gets made by the 10, it's automatically lost once you get to turn 13. So he's got back up now, back within half a second, so it might be another lap before he tries to make another move on it. And meanwhile, they've left Nate Stewart in the dust. It's about 2 seconds back from Tucker Minter to Nate Stewart. So Nate Stewart's actually in more threat by Jonathan Oates right now than he is trying to catch back up to Minter, as Andrew Schwartz has made his way into top 5. He's now running in 5th with a lot of right side damage. I'm not sure where that came from. It might have been from an earlier incident involving some of the slower traffic, but he's got a huge pancake on the right side of his car.
And you consider the fact that he started this race, he was supposed to start the grid in the 16th position, started even further back in 22nd from pit road. Great drive here for the Subway Ford Mustang out of True North Motorsports, and got enough time to maybe be able to get up there to Jonathan Oates, Nate Stewart, maybe be able to snag a podium. I'm not certain, especially with the lap times I'm seeing right now in comparison of him to the top 2, if he can get up there and be able to be in the hunt for this victory. But without a doubt, based on where he started this race, very good performance for him. It's looking like at this point in time we're going to have 15 drivers that might finish this thing out on the lead lap. Rich Jameson has returned back to the track 2 laps down after a very lengthy stay on pit road. Sean Butler, we already documented, out of the race. Tyler Lannon, Ryan Araki, Justin Malello, Robert Dorman all sit on pit road getting repairs done, and Ocean Walsh, who had the connection problems after leading the first 15-16 laps of this race. He has not returned. Looks like he will be officially finishing 21st place here tonight. With him out of the race, it now heats up this battle for the race win between Blake Reynolds and Tucker Minter, but because before, when we had Ocean Walsh in this race, this was the battle for second place that was taking place, what was it, like 3, 4, 5 seconds behind the then race leader of the 37.
Yeah, now it has shifted to a lead of the race, and Reynolds has been caught back up by Minter. He wasn't long before the 10 found his way back up, so now he's going to try and set it up again. And what I've noticed is that he has the momentum going into turn 3, just a bit too far back to sail it in. He also might be biding his time, wanting to make the move count and not use up his stuff so early, and just kind of content to run in second place. He doesn't have to lead the most amount of laps tonight. He just has to lead the most important one. So trying to figure out where Reynolds' strengths and weaknesses are. You know that he has a faster car. He undoubtedly does. In fact, he will almost try to have a look up the inside. He might try to force that the inside. He thought about it, but backed out of it. Now coming through turn 11, a bit of a slide from the 10. Does he try to use the bumper? A little bit of contact between himself and Reynolds. Now down into turn 12. Can he carry the momentum? Does he dare try to set it up? I don't think he can get the proper angle through there, but trying to carry the momentum through 13, down to the front straightaway. If he's close enough, he might have a go into turn 1, you know.
Had 2 great battles going on inside of the top 4. The battle potentially for the race win here between Reynolds and Minter, and Nate Stewart had a couple of poor corners, which has now brought him to within a half second of Jonathan Oates. Oates is there. He wants to bypass the 4 machine. This is the lifeline for Nate Stewart here for the time being of being able to be in the championship picture. Jonathan Oates at this point in time can point his way in, but if he bypasses the 4, he eliminates Nate Stewart at least this week from getting a spot in that championship battle in 3 weeks' time, leaving Nate Stewart with one last lifeline. That would, of course, be Martinsville next week, and as we know from past history, the last thing you want to do is be going into a track like Martinsville in a must-win situation.
Battle for the lead. Minter almost stuck it to the inside. He had to back out of it, but there is some fight in Tucker Minter. He knows he has to make the pass somewhere, but the difficult part is that the track is not a whole lot of places you can do that. Oh, a sail in. Absolutely bombs it down into turn 7. Up the inside, side by side. When we get to turn 8, it's going to be advantage to Reynolds. Side by side again, almost pancaking the outside wall is Minter, but they continue to battle into turn 9, through into turn 10 and 11. Can this battle hold the way it is? Minter with the advantage. Can he get the power down? We're still side by side. Who can get through 12? This is a difficult turn to get through side by side right now. Reynolds has the advantage on the outside. They still go side by side. I cannot believe that they're making this work through 13. Drag race, front straightaway. Who gets to turn 1 first? It might be Reynolds.
But we said that it's very difficult to run double wide here at Detroit Belle Isle. The great ones make it look easy. They're still side by side. Are they going to run a complete circuit around this track with side by side racing? This is amazing that neither one of them have hit each other, have hit the wall, have taken each other out. Oh, turn 3 might be the deciding factor. Here they come.
Oh, Reynolds goes defensive to the inside. Minter goes. He's gotten the position. He's gotten the run through to the inside.
Gee.
Still drag racing. If they get back to turn 7 like this, they will have completed a full lap side by side. And what this is doing is bringing Nate Stewart and Jonathan Oates into tow. Oh no, Minter locks up and spins it into the tire barrier, loses the lead, loses second, loses a ton of positions, and now Blake Reynolds is going to drive away.
It just seemed too good to be true, but man, we loved it as it was going on. Someone was going to place a wheel wrong. Someone was going to miss a braking zone. Unfortunately for our South Boston winner, Tucker Minter, he draws the short end of the stick. He's all the way back to the 5th position. A lot of damage on the front end, as unfortunately he didn't even hit just concrete barrier. He hit tire barrier. That's a lot of damage for that driver of the 10 car to have to deal with for the remainder of this race. And now if you're Blake Reynolds, you can breathe a sigh of relief because you look back in your rearview mirror, it's almost 3 seconds back to the next driver of Nate Stewart.
And it's a tough break for Minter too. He hit a bump on the way in too, and it just... the back end stepped out on him. He couldn't get the power load down. He almost was trying to outbrake Blake Reynolds into the turn, and just a bit too much speed, oversteered in, and then that car could not get slowed down in enough time and bounced it into the turn, or bounced into the tire barrier. Almost got hit by Nate Stewart on the way through. So very fortunate. The only damage he got was from the tire barrier, but heartbreaking for Tucker Minter.
Give it all he could right there. Great battling with Blake Reynolds for the race lead, potentially the race win. He's trying to catch back up here to Andrew Schwartz to at least try and move a couple spots higher inside of the top 5, but I think it's all but the white flag waving in surrender to Blake Reynolds now, who continues to open up the gap back to Nate Stewart. I've been watching Jonathan Oates these last couple of corners. He's been knocking down just about every wall off of these corners, trying as hard as he can to get up here to Nate Stewart. Because Jonathan Oates, let's be honest, Jonathan Oates has been the class of the field the entirety of the season in terms of consistency. He, outside of super speedways, is the only driver that has picked up a Grand National Series victory. Nate Stewart, of course, winning the wildcard race at Daytona, Brent Pancari at Talladega, and Jake Poulin the season opener at the Daytona International Speedway. He was the first driver to lock himself into the playoffs, and that was just on points alone. If you're him, you want to eliminate as many people as possible. Oh no, well.
That's not the way to do it, though.
It's not the way to do it. And you just saw when the tire smoke was locking up those rear brakes, you just knew that next corner was not going to be good. But quickly go back to my point, you want to have as few drivers as possible battling you for that championship. He knew he was going to have at least one, a driver that was going to be finishing second in the point standings. You now add Brent Pancari into the mix with his victory last week, and if Nate Stewart goes to victory lane gear, right now we're looking potentially at a Final Four when we get to Atlanta.
That was a lockup, a major lockup going into turn 12, and that car went straight on. He almost got it woed up in enough time, but Oates pounded the tire barrier, actually bounced off of the tire barrier, which is probably what helped him get going again a bit quicker. He didn't lose a spot to Schwartz, however, and that's the more surprising thing. That car, despite having pounded the tire barrier, does not look the worse for wear right now.
Yeah, but let's not forget about Andrew Schwartz there. Within striking distance of Oates, he may have enough style. We just slowed down there.
He let Minter through.
Wondering, he backing down. Are we actually looking at a fuel strategy race? Did he back down on purpose to try and save some fuel back there? I don't know. That was interesting.
He definitely has slowed his pace down. And that might be why the likes of Poulin and such came down pit road again, even after they had pitted before the yellow flag. And maybe it was because they were going to be close to make it on fuel, or even not going to make it on fuel at all until after the competition yellowing. And then we saw Poulin come back down again after the caution had come out for the second time to try and get all the drivers lined up. So you might know something that we all don't know, and that you can't actually make it to the end of the race if you're battling for position.
If that is the case, this would be back-to-back races where fuel mileage has come into play. It was last week, fuel strategy call for Brent Pancari, as well as the eventual winner Will Klein and second place Parker White. all staying out, all being able to save enough fuel to make it to the conclusion of the race to get podium finishes. Of course, Pancari solidifying himself a spot in the championship, and Tucker Minter continuing to struggle, locked up the brakes there in turn 3, hits the tire barrier, and his day is done.
That was actually the same thing that happened. He actually got the back end to wash out on him. It's something that was definitely suspension related. That was from the contact that he sustained, and again, just too much into the turn, carried way too much speed. Didn't lock up, but lost the back end, a major oversteer, and into the tires again. That is day done for the 10.
That's the tough thing about this street course in particular. You talked about it. No runoff that we're used to at a lot of the road courses. If you make contact with something, it's going to be a tire barrier, it's going to be a concrete wall. It is going to hurt your car for the remainder of the race. And it's that one minute bit of contact can make a day go from bad to much, much worse. We've seen it happen there with Tucker Minter. We saw it happen with Sean Butler earlier on in this thing. A lot of drivers have fallen victim to this street course, but let's be honest. When we looked at the playoff schedule and we saw Detroit Belle Isle down there towards the end of the season, we knew 100% guaranteed this track was going to play a huge factor into what the championship battle was going to be looking like.
Absolutely, and it's a track very similar to other tracks. It's a street circuit. There are tens of hundreds of street circuits that we've seen throughout the history of motorsport, and this one is just a few of the many, but one of the better ones that we've seen and one of the most iconic ones. And it's just recently been released for Long Beach, and I'm just gonna spew a little bit of my ideas for what next season could look like. But they just released Long Beach for iRacing, I believe, and that would be a track that I'd be interested in seeing these cars try to go around. It's a street circuit, obviously, but it's kind of a different type of street circuit. It's a bit more, I don't know, there's a certain energy about Long Beach that I think would be really fun to see. So, admins, if you're listening, try to put Long Beach on the schedule. I think it'd be really fun.
I mean, at least as far as I'm aware, there have been some announcements coming out of the FTF series and from the FTF admins. They have already released the schedule for the 2022 FTF Cup Series. It's sounding like there may not be a Grand National Series next season. They may run a handful of races during the same weekend of some of the Cup races, which is going to be called a light series. But as far as I am aware, I do believe that they made the announcement there will not be a full-time, or at least a full schedule, Grand National Series season next year. So obviously, for some of these guys, they've got a couple more opportunities to be able to pick up a Grand National Series victory here today at Belle Isle, next week at Martinsville, and then 2 weeks after at the season finale at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
This battle for second place is looking kind of like the battle for the lead that we saw a few moments ago, and that can both be a good thing and be a horrifying thing, because I've been watching Jonathan Oates' car. It does not look very stable on corner entry and under braking. Looks like the back end wants to spill out on it, so have to keep an eye on this. But this could be our next best battle on the racetrack, because Andrew Schwartz is catching up to these two, as well as Blake Reynolds has opened a 10-second lead back to these two. I think that it's all done and dusted for the lead of the race, but second place very much not settled yet.
The race win maybe all but decided, but the Grand National Series win still yet to be determined, as Nate Stewart, Jonathan Oates, and Andrew Schwartz all within the same vicinity here. Each one of them could solidify themselves a battle for that championship in 3 weeks' time at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Stewart overdrove the corner. He's going to pay the price. Jonathan Oates is going to move by. Nate Stewart going to rough him up to try and get the spot back, and this is going to bring Schwartz right into the mix as well.
Oates goes through. Stewart's is third. Now can Oates run away with this? This is huge championship implications. This is what Oates needed to have happen. He wants to have as few competitors as possible for the championship, and right now put himself in a good position. On Nate Stewart, he wants to put himself into the mix for this, so he's got to try and get back up and get this proverbial win. Oh, we got a car in pit road, I think.
Cabrera in the 138. Remember, we saw him around earlier on in this one. Did not bring out a caution, as everybody was able to avoid him, and this looks like a regularly scheduled stop for the 138. Coming to 5 laps to go, so just how close is it for a bunch of these guys?
I dare to ask, and I don't think that these drivers are too keen on wanting to give away anything, but if anything is to be an indication, Andrew Schwartz did back down quite a bit earlier on. He has a fast car, he just hasn't been able to run it as fast as he wanted to. I think he has gone into fuel saving mode. If you're Blake Reynolds, I would strongly consider going into fuel saving mode now if you haven't been already. You've got an 11-second lead, so there's plenty of distance to play with, but we're getting down into crunch time for these drivers. If you have a strategy call that you want to make, you better do it now.
Difficult would it be to save fuel at a track like this, because we're on board with Andrew Schwartz, this long straight, well, I won't call it a straightaway because it's obviously not straight, but it is a longer section without a corner. Then you go into these heavy braking zone areas. I mean, I'm just not, at least at this point in time, seeing very many areas where drivers could be able to utilize the saving fuel strategy.
All right, you can back down your corner entries, so you can make your braking zones a bit wider. You can actually coast on the way in, and that's actually a strategy that prototype drivers use in the World Enduro, or actually any series that runs any former prototype, is that they'll actually back off and coast their way into a braking zone, and that saves them quite a bit of fuel on the way in. So you could start doing that. You can start, again, just kind of maybe 3/4 throttling or a little bit down the straightaways. There's a lot of things you could do, especially with Blake Reynolds. He's got the distance back to second place in order to play with that. Now, if you're Andrew Schwartz, who just moved into third place, your main goal now is to take second place away from Jonathan Oates, as Nate Stewart, I believe, has started a bit of fuel saving.
Yeah, it was interesting there. We saw him back off and let the 67 on by. Hard to tell if that was the case of him going into fuel save mode, or if he getting the concrete barrier with the left rear of his machine and losing some momentum, just kind of did the courteous thing and adhered the spot to the faster car off of corner exit. But it's looking like the chess pieces are starting to move into place here, and you kind of wonder who's going to have the final checkmate move by the time the checkered flag waves. I mean, we still have more than 3 laps to go. It takes them a long time to get around this racetrack. This track is about 2.5 miles in length. I mean, that's the same length as Daytona International, but without the twists and turns, and it takes them some time to be able to make these circuits. Things are going to get very interesting fuel-wise, and the last thing you want to do at a road course as well, as big as Belle Isle, is run out of fuel in, say, the first half of the course, because very unlikely you're going to be able to make it back.
Absolutely. We've been running about the 138s. Actually, Blake Reynolds is running a 138.1 the last time by. Compare that to Jonathan Oates, 139 almost flat. So, yeah, quite a long time for these drivers at this track. And this track isn't particularly that long when you consider how long some of the other circuits that we've been on is. It's just that with these cars specifically, it takes a while to get around because they are quite rotund when they're turning around the turns. So, not to say they're a bullet in a straight line, these cars are, but definitely a bit porky on the entry into turns. But I think right now Oates has actually been able to keep up front of Andrew Schwartz, so no immediate fire from there. Brett Pancari, we haven't really talked much about the drivers behind the top 4 because most of the action has been happening within the top 5. Brett Pancari, now running in a 5th place all by himself, is actually, been pretty quiet this race, but has been a pretty consistent run. I think that car doesn't have any damage on it, and if it does, it's very minimal. One of the cleaner looking race cars out in the circuit right now in the 035, and Nathan Rabideau behind him actually had a spin into, I believe that's turn 3, and he's not looking the best of ways. The 93's actually pounded the tire barrier. That's going to open the door for Matthew Zwack to go on through.
That's huge, because I was just going to bring up the fact with Rabideau ahead of Matthew Zwack, he currently has Matthew Zwack outside of the top 2 in the point standings by 2 points. It was a 1-point separation between those two coming into this one. Rabideau, big defensive move there, trying to keep Spencer Ray behind him. Now with Zwack completing the pass on the 93, the two of them are tied for that second spot in the standings once again.
Oh, and this is going to be big when we get into Martinsville, because then it will come down to who can finish in front of the other at that point. That will be great for television, but you don't want to have that kind of stress heading into the penultimate race of the championship.
We've seen some drivers using the bumpers here today to kind of rattle the cage and make some moves. They will be more than willing to use the front bumpers, the chrome horns, when we get to the short track of Martinsville next week, no doubt about it, especially if there's a chance to go to Atlanta and win that championship on the line. This battle here might be the one to watch down this home stretch. Well, as soon as I say that, Nate Stewart's reeled back in. Andrew Schwartz has had an issue. The hood is gone on that car. I don't know what he hit, but that has effectively taken him out of a chance of not only finishing in the podium, but securing himself a trip to Atlanta here at the Belle Isle Road Course.
And now he's got to run back down Nate Stewart, and with that damaged race car, looks like it might be all for naught, but he had a great run. You got to consider where he started versus where he's running at right now. Given the fact he's got so much damage, that has got to be one of the fastest cars on the circuit, and you almost wonder what would have happened if he had started in a top 10 position. But right now, settling for a 4th place. Although there's still some fight in that 67, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to take it to Nate Stewart if he can get a move set up. As down the front straightaway into turn 14, Blake Reynolds comes to take the white flag of the race. And ever since his battle earlier with Tucker Minter ended up in disaster for the 10, it's been smooth sailing for the 62 machine.
Blake Reynolds looking for what will be his 7th win on the season. I believe I want to say his 6th at a road course. It's close to, oh no!
You can't be serious.
Wow. Well, I guess if you've got an 11-second lead, you can afford a mistake like that, but it just shows even though you may have had the strongest car for majority of this race, this track can still get you in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's rattled Reynolds' cage a little bit. And we've seen drivers run off the track even under pacing at this in this event, so don't feel too bad, Blake. You had plenty of you still got an 11-second lead, so that never happened.
Blake Reynolds, his last victory was at a road course, the Indianapolis road course, back in the latter portion of July. If you look at his finishes back for his last 11 starts, he's not had a finish outside of the podium in all of those races. And he's going to add yet another podium finish here today. He's going to help that 62 team, Speed Incorporated, with their bid for the Owners' Championship. Another trip to victory lane here, and as you pointed out, with Ocean Walsh out of the race, kind of gave him the opportunity, Tucker Minter making a mistake, to be able to capitalize. As across the start-finish line, Blake Reynolds will drift and pick up his 7th win on the season, taking the Motor City Mayhem 100 presented by Tristan Hagenstein Photography.
We got a pretty good battle back here for 6th place. That championship implication between Matthew Zwack and Nathan Rabideau, they were right nose to tail for a majority of the circuits around the last final lap, so we'll have to keep an eye on if Rabideau tries to send it up the inside. I don't think he's got enough room right now. Zwack will, I think, maintain 6th place through 13, through 14. Well, actually make that through 13 now. I don't know. I think he's going to secure it. So Matthew Zwack will officially finish in front of Rabideau, which means we are going to have an intense battle for the final championship spot as Rabideau and Spencer Ray make contact going to the line.
Spencer Ray sends it to the outside, not able to make the pass. He'll cross the line, though, spinning and crashing in sparks. In the 8th position, Palesso and Isaac Johnson cross just behind, completing the top 10. But with that 2nd place finish, Jonathan Oates now will secure himself a spot in the championship picture. He was already looking like he was going to lock himself in on points, but now he doesn't have to rely on points at all. And it's going to be interesting now to see, with him advancing, does that now move the cut line down for top 2 in the point standings to include Matthew Zwack and Nathan Rabideau? We'll have to see if the cut line moves or not. Nonetheless, the one thing we definitely know, Jonathan Oates, he will go to Atlanta. He will battle for a championship right now. He and Brent Pancari, the only 2 that are confirmed they will be battling for that championship title in about 3 weeks' time.
So, with the championship looming, we have come to the end of our race here tonight, and For some of these drivers that are going to be trying to get their way into the final race in Atlanta, this was kind of a race that they were eyeing to maybe pull a rabbit out of their hat and try to outclass the other drivers that they were fighting against. But some of them were just trying to set up Martinsville, and I think that we had a couple of drivers do just that, including Matthew Zwack, which will now be tied going into Martinsville for our second and final confirmed spot for the championship lead, as Jonathan Oates, a very thankful Jonathan Oates, will take the proverbial championship win tonight. But Seth, when we get to Martinsville, we've certainly seen some championship implications from tonight's race. When we get there, what's going to happen at Martinsville, knowing that we've made some rivalries throughout this race and there's only one spot confirmed left in the championship slot, and it's being hunted down by not one, not two, but three, potentially four drivers?
Here's what the scenario looks like to me. I do believe that with this air quotes victory for Jonathan Oates, that will now move the cut line down. Nathan Rabideau and Matthew Zwack, as you mentioned, the both of them tied, with Rabideau having the 1 point advantage over Zwack and Zwack having the 1 position advantage here today. Those two guys are going to have everybody else, Jake Poulin, Gary Waterworth, Sean Butler, Nate Stewart, Lucas Palesel, Andrew Schwartz, Justin Hagenstein, and Evan Rice in must-win situations when we get to Martinsville next week. I mentioned the fact that as a driver, the last thing you want to do is be in a must-win situation heading to a short track. But on the flip side, if you're a driver like Matthew Zwack or Nathan Rabideau, you've got to be on pins and needles, because you know then when a driver is put in that situation, they will be willing to do everything and anything to secure the fact that they are going to be the first one back to that checkered flag. So you've got to do some defensive driving at a short track, which is a lot easier said than done.
And it's not just any short track either. It happens to be the one that, brings about the best and the worst in a lot of drivers. So once we get to Martinsville, we'll have to see what will exactly happen at the paper clip. But tonight, it's Blake Reynolds that took away the victory after the unfortunate departure of Osen Walsh, who went out due to connection after he had run off the circuit at turn 7. So some issues for the 37 crew, but he will finish in a 21st position, officially only completing 19 laps of tonight's race. And then it will be Jonathan Oates, Nate Stewart, Andrew Schwartz, Brett Pancari will secure a 5th place position. Matthew Zwack, Nathan Rabideau, Spencer Ray, Lucas Palesel, and Isaac Johnson will be in 10th place. A pretty solid top 10 considering all of the shenanigans that happened when the competition yellow came out and then they had to restack the field. So a lot of these drivers with great runs, and then outside the top 10, you've got drivers such as Matt Taylor, Gary Waterworth, which a few of these drivers I don't think we've talked about once today, and they've just been quietly running around in the midfield. Jake Poulin never really got the strategy that he was trying to do to work, and he will eventually finish in a 13th position, although he was as low as 21st tonight at one point. So pretty good drive up into the top 15. And then be David Cabrera and Tucker Minter. Unfortunate for this 10 crew, as it just went from bad to worse, battling for the lead. Locks up, has an oversteer moment into turn 5, ends up pounding the tire barrier, and then a couple of laps later ends up leaving some 11s down into turn 3 and hitting the tire barrier there as well.
Certainly a road course, a street course that completely can change the landscape of what a field looks like when the green flag drops to when the checkered flag drops. I mentioned the fact 22 drivers took the green flag here tonight, and only 13 made it back to the checkered flag on the lead lap. There were a couple of stragglers multiple laps down that also completed this race, but certainly a lot of prime contenders involved early on in this race after that competition caution, with no chance of a yellow flag to be able to get them back in contention. And no doubt about it. Certainly the entirety of the top 5, entirety of the top 10 looking entirely different with 10 laps to go than it did 10 laps in to tonight's event. But some of the survivors here this evening that are going to come away with podium finishes are standing by, and let's see if we can talk with tonight's 3rd place finisher, Nate Stewart. Hey, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. Got us?
Yeah.
All right, mate. I mean, obviously, I could hear a little bit of disappointment there. You were, for a time, in the spot that would have guaranteed you a championship battle at Atlanta. you come up with a solid outing of third place here now, but I mean, obviously, this track, we know this road course, this street course is very difficult. We kind of, when we saw it on the schedule, knew that this was going to be a bit of a wild card factor for drivers, kind of a survival race. Just how difficult is it to maneuver these Xfinity cars around this course?
It's extremely difficult to maneuver these cars around this course, considering the low downforce and high horsepower that these cars have. There's also not a lot of grip in the tires, which I'm sure was very evident tonight, and so I mean, it was kind of hard to get around the track, and plus, I'm not too good about saving my tires on road courses. Unfortunately, I'm very fast. I just can't get that long run pace out, and that's ultimately what shot myself in the foot tonight, and now I'm basically in a must-win at Martinsville.
It's definitely an interesting race, seeing how the dynamics of the event changed throughout the race. But one thing that stayed consistent was it was difficult to find place to pass here, and more than ever, it was apparent in the last half of the race when there was chances that you needed to get down and make a pass, but you just couldn't do it. How difficult really is it to set a move up and find a place to do it here? Because there's really only about a couple of turns that you can make a pass.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult to set a move up, but I mean, that doesn't really mean anything. We saw Tucker Minter and Blake Reynolds go side by side for basically an entire lap. So I mean, but those guys are some of the best on the sim, and I'm trying to get to that level, but I'm not there yet. But overall, it was kind of hard to set up passes, and I mean, that's why I was getting so antsy whenever we had that whenever we had that restart, because I wanted to make sure I got by Oates and hopefully just kept him back there. And I mean, you saw us two make contact, but that's because I really, really wanted that spot, and I wasn't going to give him the inches he needed. And I mean, I got a little bit of damage out of it, but it is what it is. But overall, you really just had to wait for somebody to make a mistake to be able to make a pass, and unfortunately, I made a mistake, and next thing I know, Jonathan Oates is going by me.
All right, so let's shift gears here, Nate, and look towards next week. Martinsville, the last opportunity to be able to get into a championship picture at Atlanta. Obviously, a short track. It's got to be a little bit nerve-wracking. I mean, what's the strategy? Is there a strategy to try and make sure that you're going to be one of those drivers with the championship on the line in 3 weeks' time?
Reinforce the front bumper, really. I mean, Martinsville is okay. So I pride myself on my road course expertise. I say that loosely when it comes to stock cars, and Martinsville is by far the closest oval to a road course. So I've always enjoyed Martinsville, and I've always been good at Martinsville. I qualified on the pole there in my Road to Pro split this past season. So, and I ran up front for most of the race. So I'm hoping to hopefully repeat some of that magic tonight, or not tonight, but next week. And just hopefully just get in a position to where I am able to lock in, because I don't necessarily absolutely have to win. If I can make up 6 points on Jake Poulin and nobody behind me passes me, either Rabideau or Zwack can win the race. So, and then that'll bump the cut line down to between 5th and 6th. So if I can pass Poulin and one of those two wins, I'll be in. Or, I'll have to go out and win myself, which I would prefer. But I don't know, man. It's Martinsville. It's a short track. Anything can happen. We've seen crazy things at Martinsville before, be it real life, on the sim, or wherever else. And there's not really a strategy. I'm sorry for such a long-winded answer, but there's not really a strategy going into it other than keep all the fenders on it until the last green, white, checkered, and then hopefully I'm in a spot to where I can make it in and just hope for the best.
I'll tell you, Nate, I love it. I mean, obviously, Burnsville hasn't even started. You're already putting those scenarios together for being able to see if one of them plays out, to be able to be in that championship picture. Always shows the drivers are always thinking no matter what the situation is. Man, obviously a great run for you, though, here tonight. Third place. Congratulations on the podium. Now we'll turn the mic over to you for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
First off, thank you to you guys for broadcasting. Thank you to all the FTF admins for putting on this league each and every week. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this. Thank you to Apex Action Racing Photography. That's me thanking myself because that's my own personal photography business, specializing in iRacing screenshots for right now, but hopefully venturing into the real world photography scene soon. Let's see, Victory Lap Racing Designs, Speed Visions, Digital Chumps, Bench Racer, the Rain Race Podcast. Oh god, there's so many of them. There's a lot, and I just can't thank all of them enough for the continued support they've given me throughout this FTF season and the Road to Pro season. I'm not saying that season's completely over yet, but I am kind of looking forward to next year with the announcement that the FTF admins put up the other day. I might be able to do well in FTF next year. We'll just have to see. Also looking forward to Road to Pro next year and hopefully bringing back all the supporters that I have this year and, hopefully some more. It'd be really cool to see, and I'm just looking forward to the future. Can't dwell on the past.
That's Nate Stewart, third place here tonight after the craziness at Detroit Belle Isle. Once again, congratulations on a great result, and best of luck next week there in what's sure to be a very interesting penultimate race in Martinsville.
Thank you. I'll see you all next week.
A driver here tonight that finishes second but secures himself a spot in the championship picture at Atlanta is up next. Let's talk with our regular season champion, Jonathan Oates. Hey, Jonathan, Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys. What's up?
Man, I mean, we kind of been talking about it here during these playoffs. It was looking like the 73 was going to lock itself in on points, but man, you don't even have to worry about points now heading into Martinsville. The second place finish, highest Grand National Series driver. You get the Grand National Series victory to secure yourself a spot into the Atlanta Motor Speedway Championship battle. I mean, how good does that feel first off, and especially knowing that you have Martinsville on the horizon?
Well, I'd say it's pretty good. The playoffs didn't start off great for us at Las Vegas. Talladega was surprisingly okay for us. I feel like I might be leaving out a race somewhere in there, but the Charlotte Roval was pretty good. Had a decent run there, but overall, I feel like we've just kind of been under the radar of these playoffs. Not really where I wanted to be performing. The tracks definitely haven't suited me the best, but I think I definitely should have been making better work for it. So, especially after what happened at Kansas, going into the night, I kind of knew that it was probably going to be my best shot to advance. I've never been particularly great at Martinsville, so it was definitely going to be something that just really a situation where I kind of needed to have a good night. Otherwise, I was going to be in trouble. So I'm definitely happy that we could get the win, finally perform at a level that I want to be performing at in these playoffs. It doesn't make me too much less worried for Martinsville because I guess now the goal is just to go out there and win, but depending on how things happen tonight, I mean, that could have been the goal anyways, so I wouldn't say I'm optimistic for Martinsville. I just know that I'm okay at short tracks, but pretty bad at Martinsville, so hopefully I can work on that a little bit over the next week and be okay there. It's definitely good to be locked in, though. It's not going to make the finale any easier. There's a lot of good I forgot how to speak. A lot of good drivers who are going to be racing there. I think if Nate advances from Martinsville, I mean, he's going to be one to watch out for. Even if he doesn't, I mean, Zwack, Rabideau, those are some really good drivers who are definitely going to be hard to beat. So really now the focus just turns to Atlanta. But it's great to have the weight lifted off tonight and be able to get this win.
We were talking about it earlier, and we want to get your opinion on it. We were talking about why there is a week break between our next race and then Atlanta. What does that do for you mentally? Because we were talking about how some drivers might prefer there to be an extra week of rest, or some drivers just want to go straight into the finale. So what's your take on that?
I mean, that's what happened last year. I think they had the Martinsville cutoff race and then a week off. It gives me a little bit more time to prepare, but it also gives everyone else a little bit more time to prepare, so I don't think it really changes much. I've always been pretty good at at Atlanta. It's definitely my best intermediate when I've always been pretty subpar at the intermediates. So I don't think it'll really help or hurt to have a little bit more practice time. It'll make me a little bit more comfortable, but it'll make everyone else a little bit more comfortable as well. So I wouldn't say it's too much of an advantage. I don't think it really changes much.
I mean, we saw a heck of a battle for second place there in the final 10 laps or so between yourself, Nate Stewart, and Andrew Schwartz. All of you would be advancing into the Atlanta Championship picture if any one of you finished in that second spot. So I think it just made that battle even more important down the closing stages. I mean, how nerve-wracking is it when you've got drivers that all have the same goal as you do, the tight corners that we've seen here, the little room for error, and if you make a mistake, there's a wall or a tire barrier there to greet you. Just how difficult is it as a driver to just stay mentally focused with so many different things that you got to worry about?
It's really, really difficult. I had a little bit of comfort knowing that on the first run, Nate burned up his tires pretty bad, and I pulled 12 seconds on him. And that all went away when I stuffed it in the tire barrier when I was right on him. I think you guys probably caught it because it was right in the battle between me and him. And I missed my braking point. I locked up. I went straight on. A couple of expletives were said. That was not a good moment. I didn't think it was all gone right there, but it was definitely just a sign of me, losing focus for half a second. And if you even lose it for half a second at a track like this, you're going in the wall. So it's really difficult to just stay focused like that. But I think at the same time, it makes this win a little bit more rewarding because I had to fight back from hitting the wall. I had to fight around this tough racetrack. I had to fight against Nate, Andrew. I mean, it was a really hard-fought battle. Nate didn't make it easy on me. It was a really fun battle. I'll give him that. I mean, just classic stock car racing. He goes a little bit wide. He gives me a little bit of a door bang. We're all racing hard. We're all going for everything, so I'm not going to fault anyone for making contact or anything like that. But it's so difficult to just keep focus when, you've got your teammates in your ears. Isaac was running his own race. He was in a voice chat with me. You've got braking markers that you can't miss by even an inch. You got other cars. You got walls. There's so much to focus on that it really does make it difficult to just stay focused. But hey, I was able to do it. I was able to keep the tires on the car. I pulled out at the end, and when it mattered, I was able to have the pace. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Get that golden ticket into the championship battle as Atlanta Motor Speedway as a result. Congratulations on that. Another solid outing at a road course. I remember talking to you, I think it was back when you guys finished up the Indianapolis road course. He says, I'm okay at road courses, but I don't really prefer them. Well, I'll tell you what, the numbers are certainly looking pretty good for you at the road courses so far this season, and it's a road course tonight that solidifies you into the season finale. Jonathan, we're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
One thing I'd like to say, that was definitely not me at the Indy road course. I finished in 6th, but that does sound like something I might say. Anyways, main shout out I want to give, I got to give a shout out to the sponsor on the hood. It's my iRacing League, OSRL. We run ARCA cars on Thursday nights. You can check us out and find more information on twitter.com/OSRL_. Don't forget the underscore, otherwise you'll go to some other guy's account. So you can check us out there. You can sign up. The sign-ups are always open. Our next race is Richmond, I think. I should probably know that, but you know what? That's okay. I got to give a shout-out to my teammates, Robert Dorman, who kept me calm throughout the battle there I had with Nate. He did a great job keeping me focused. I got to give a shout-out to Isaac, who finished inside the top 10, I think. Yeah, he finished in 10th. Good job to him. I also painted his car, so very nice-looking paint scheme. I got to give a shout-out to the rest of my teammates at F4R who didn't run tonight. Which would be Ethan Corder, Rudy Valentine, CJ Nemetz, Jack Painter, and Adam Sweet and Tyler Williams. They're all really supportive of me, so it's cool to have them. Cool to have them around, even if they don't race all the time. And yeah, that's about it.
That's Jonathan Oates. A second place finish here tonight at Belle Isle secures
Woo.
him a battle for that championship in 3 weeks' time in Atlanta. Congratulations on that. Best of luck next week at Martinsville, and we look forward to seeing the preparation you put in to be able to try and get that championship in what's been a really good year for you, Jonathan. Good luck.
Thank you.
And let's go down to Victory Lane. Seventh time this season. 6th time at a road course. It is Blake Reynolds who gets to burn it down here tonight at Belle Isle. Hey Blake, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yo.
Well, man, obviously, what a race here tonight at Belle Isle. We knew it was going to be chaotic. Man, it just seemed like this racetrack was saying, here you go, Blake, take this victory. We saw the connection problems for Ocean Walsh. Your battle for second turns into a battle for the lead between yourself and Tucker Minter. Minter blinks first, gets the tire barrier, and next thing you know, you've got 11, 12 seconds on the rest of the field. But I want to go back to that battle between you and Minter because we were up here with our jaws dragging on the floor watching you guys side by side for almost the entire lap at this racetrack. And we've been told in the past, doesn't matter what type of car you bring to Detroit Belle Isle, it is virtually impossible to be able to race side by side. I mean, was that fun? Was it nerve-wracking? What was it like when you guys were having that heck of a battle for the race lead?
I wasn't expecting it, but I guess I'm confident enough in my racecraft, and I know Tucker is too. I mean, me and Tucker are some of oval sim racing's top. You know, you don't get much better than us. So, once the battle got initiated, I was just trying. It was going into 7, I believe. I was just lifting early, kind of in like a fuel saving maneuver, but I was just trying not to blow the corner. That was what I was doing most of the race. Tucker just had this amazing ability to just get into these corners nice and easy while just outbraking me. So, I was just doing what I can to get a nice run out of the corner and make time up again, but he got in there under me into 7, and then next thing I knew, I was like, I need to leave a lane and a tenth of room for him almost everywhere. So it ended up being like a really nice, like, clean battle. I don't think either of us hit the wall until he actually made the mistake going into, I think it was 4, but yeah, like a fantastic race, and I didn't expect this combo to work out as well as it did.
It certainly did prove a lot of things about this track and this car, is that you can fit this car into places that you didn't expect you could, and you can get some pretty good racing at this racetrack with these machines. But one of the things that I think that we all took away from this race was just how incredibly difficult it was to eventually make the pass once you were alongside, because I think you mentioned it where he was able to get alongside, but was not really able to pass. And it was interesting that you were having to struggle to get around this track. But what was the most difficult part about this racetrack and this car type?
Definitely the braking. It's already really hard to avoid the wheel hop, but because like the braking zones are like, I was saying, like, I was surprised. I was telling Sean Butler and Nate Stewart, I was in the channel with them. I was telling them, I'm surprised we have so much tire wear considering how little our tires are actually touching the ground because this track's so bumpy. And it's just, I don't know, like, I was having to brake maximum probably 60%. And just to compare, Daytona road course, in some of those braking zones, I'm doing 80 to 90. And like Spa, where it has some really straight braking zones with very little elevation change, almost 100%. So it's just, this is a completely different animal in terms of braking. And then, it's a lot of 90-degree corners, so that kind of makes it easier to manage the rear tires. But at the same time, you have to just kind of know where you are on the track and just keeping those rear tires on and keeping the temps down. Just don't overwork your stuff. Just get in a rhythm and you can get around there pretty easy.
When we come to any road course, especially one as challenging as Detroit Belle Isle is, one thing that we know is we can't take anything for granted until the checkered flag waves. You had 12 seconds over the second place driver. Final lap heading into turn 3. We see you lock up the brakes, fortunately able to slow that thing down before hitting any of those tire barriers in that runoff area. How hard did the hands clutch the wheel at that point in time?
Quite a bit, actually. Just, I didn't think, I don't know, I was like, oh, it's the white flag, and then I was trying to join, I guess Mooncar was going up. I was trying to join that, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh, I gotta sign up for that. So I was looking at my chat because I was streaming, and then next thing I knew, I blew my braking point. But I knew that if I just keep my, the number one thing, especially in oval racing on a road course, or just oval racing in general in these cars, just don't panic. Very slow movements, and you can pretty much avoid any mistake if you make one or come back from one. So I knew there was that straight braking zone there. I just knew, okay, I'm just gonna throw it to first, absolutely get it stopped, and then turn. And I knew I could make it, and that's what I did. And barely locked the tire and still finished the rest of the lap incident free. Car drove perfect all the way to the checkered after that.
Absolutely did. You pick up your 6th road course win on the season, 7th win overall here in the FTF Grand National Series. Congratulations on a great performance overall here today, Blake. And now we're going to turn the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
Sure thing. I streamed tonight. I had quite the viewers. Twitch.tv/Blake Reynolds 66. I'll thank you guys for broadcasting. You guys do an excellent job as usual. I don't know what you should do with your field of view tonight, but I liked the focus. It looked like I was watching it back when I was waiting. It was really cool looking. I don't know, something different. But yeah, that's cool. FTF admin team. Even though they threw an accidental caution tonight, we'll forgive them for that. But they are definitely a cast of characters, and they do their best to put this stuff on. And then Speed Inc., Dead Zone Racing for the 62, Toyota Supra, Kyle Riley, Brian Mercurio, all the cast of characters that are on that car, including me. And we're still trying to get that Owner's Championship. A little behind because we kind of got lazy with it, but the last few races, I think we're going to try and get it back with our best of the best in the race car.
Well, that's Blake Reynolds. That's 62, a little bit closer to getting that Owners' Championship with 2 races still left on the schedule. Once again, congratulations on the great performance here, Blake. Another road course victory under your belt, and not certain what the schedule is of who's going to be in the 62 for Martinsville or for Atlanta, but if we don't see you for the conclusion of this season, congratulations on what's been a phenomenal season for you here in the FTF Grand National Series.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
43 laps in the books here at Detroit Belle Isle. The championship picture just continues to get more and more exciting. 2 drivers locked in through wins. The cut line moves down. Nathan Rabideau, Matthew Zwack up above it. And again, just going to go back to the point there that I made when we were talking with Nate Stewart. Checker flag waves at Belle Isle. He's already putting together the scenarios for him to be able to advance after the Martinsville race is over, and more than likely other drivers, Poole, Waterworth, Butler, these guys are eyeing Martinsville as their last opportunity as well. They're already, I think, putting those scenarios together as well.
Absolutely. They're already trying to figure out what they can do once they get to Martinsville, and then just have to maximize the amount of opportunity you can have at the circuit. It's going to be a circuit that they will be able to use their car as a battering ram, as well as its slowest track that we'll be going to this season. Also, the one with the most tempers flare. So the penultimate race on the season will definitely play host to setting up the final race of the season. Probably have more championship implications at that race than we will at the actual season finale.
And the interesting thing is, too, you bring up the fact short tracks breed short tempers. Last thing you want to do is win yourself a playoff position into the finale at Atlanta Motor Speedway, wreck another playoff contender to do it, and then give them a shot to get back at you in 2 weeks' time in Atlanta when the championship's on the line for you. So, oh man, having a short track as the next to last race in the season to set up who the championship battle drivers are going to be, oh, things could get pretty spicy when we get to Atlanta.
It's definitely going to be a big chess game when we get to Martinsville, so excited to see what they can do there, and excited to see where this season ends at Atlanta. It's going to be intense, and it's going to be a nice send-off for this series if they don't have another season next year. But a sad send-off for this series, as it's a great series. It's held a special place in my heart the last year of commentating it. It was sad to see it go, but we have a championship to crown yet to come.
And the next step in that road is going to be the final trip of the season, final opportunity for drivers to make their way into the championship picture. Next week, we head to Martinsville, Virginia, the Paperclip Short Track. It's going to decide who is going to be battling for the championship and who will just be trying to end out the season at Atlanta with a win to end off what's been an incredible season here in the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. Blake Reynolds is your winner here tonight at Belle Isle. Jonathan Oates finishing second, secures himself a spot into that championship battle along with Brent Pancari from last week. It's going to be down to who the final 2, maybe 3 drivers, depending on the scenario next week, are going to be that will join them to battle for that championship trophy in the season finale at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. But Anthony, for one final time, appreciate you joining me booth here tonight for what we knew coming in, and we are not surprised leaving a very interesting, very technical, very nerve-wracking street course race.
Absolutely. It's been fun, and I can't wait to see what we have left for these 2 races, and thanks for having me here.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight as well. Hope you guys join us next Saturday night with the green flag flying at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the I had it here, the Eco 150. That's what it was. Forgot the race distance at the Martinsville Speedway. Until then, for Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for joining us here tonight at Belle Isle as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.